Okay, guys. So, if you remember this presentation where we spoke about building, about Revit and the workflow of Revit, right? Where we looked at the how Revit. We look at how the recommended workflow of Revit is for working with architecture and architectural designs, right? So you create your design, then you try and create a massing model to help you to explore your design further, and then you're going to create your BIM model from your massing model. While you're creating your BIM model, you insert families, right? And families takes many forms, usually furniture, but it can be windows, doors, objects, even objects that you custom model, right? You insert those into your model, right? So these are families here. You insert them into your model. And the next thing now is that you normally collaborate with your BIM model. So these are the two things that we're going to do before we can produce whatever the output is. Now, the output for this first part of the assignment is design drawings, and we're going to actually take a little time to look at the difference between design and presentation and construction drawings. Not quite at this moment. We're going to look at that when you're actually producing the views for that. Right now, where I'm interested in now is adding details to this model, and that will certainly involve you using the family editor, right? Now, you guys have done have used Revit before. Well, this is just a quick refresh. Family editors is a RVA file. That's the file format. As you guys know, the file that you're working on now is a RVT file, or is a Revit file. And family editors are RFA, right? Family editors is not just furniture, but it's pretty much anything that you insert into your model comes in as a type of family. So even the walls that you guys use to create your model, it is indeed a type of family. Now what we're going to look on today is in the family modeling environment. And this is where we get to create or modify custom objects. Now there's also the conceptual mass editing environment, and I hope you guys remember that we did look on that. That is where our model actually started. It started from a conceptual mass, and then we turned it into a BIM model. And then there's also the model in place element, and we're going to look on that, but you're going to do that in the second part of the major project, right? So this is pretty much where our focus will be now, because when you talk about adding details to your model, all of those details that you're adding, all of those windows and doors and things that you're adding are going to be from the family editor, right? All right, so the idea is, and I'm not going to go back through all of these slides, but this is the part that I need you to consider, right? And it's going to be critical for this part of your model, but it's going to be super critical for your design studio. How much of us are planning to model our building in Revit, your housing project? We can go by the show of hands. Anybody know to raise the digital hands? Everybody should be used to that by now, right? Alright, cool. What, just two people? So what about Christopher and Donald and Kira and Matthew and Robert? You guys also plan to? You're a CAD? Oh, you're an ArchiCAD. So you're going to be invested in ArchiCAD. Alright, no problem. No problem. No, what I'm telling you now goes whether you're using ArchiCAD or or Revit, right? But in creating a BIM model, you're going to have to make these three decisions. You're going to have to decide what aspect of your model will be fully detailed, what aspect will be partially detailed in 3D, and what aspect will have no 3D, right? You cannot 3D everything. Cannot, should not. There is no need for you to 3D things like bolts and angle plates and these things, right? So you will have to determine what parts of your model should be detailed and what's not. So this is why when we started the BIM model, we created a massing first, right? You have to create walls, you have to create the floors, you have to create the roof, right? That goes without saying. But the detailing of your model now, you're going to carefully choose what aspects need to be 100% modeled and what aspect don't need any model. So for example, things like to generate floor plans, elevations, sections, things that have curves, and your 3D views, those need to be fully modeled. You can take a look at the mirror board to see what I mean. So for example, in order to show things like a site plan, let's use this one, right? We generated this site plan from modeling the site, right? The site was fully modeled. There's the pathways and the entrances and all of that. The building sat on the site properly, and we fully modeled the stairs flowing along with the terrain. So those things need to be fully modeled. Things like floor plans need to be fully modeled. You need to show where windows, doors is. The doors need to have the right width and all of those things. Those things are fully detailed. However, there are some other things. So for example now, things like stair details and door details, railing details, some of these don't need to be fully modeled. So for example, you don't need to fully model the sill of a window. It's a good idea to model the window fully detailed, so you have the height and the width and so forth. But how the window connects to the wall is usually a detail that you would draw fully in 2D. There's no need to like model the little grooves that and mechanisms that go into whether it's a sliding window or opening window, right? So those elements are partially modeled. For example, things like roof detail. You don't need to model the shingles on the roof, the standing seam, alright? You definitely don't need to be modeling things like, I don't know, the concrete stone particles in the roof. That's just ridiculous. Pretty much what you need is a silhouette of the roof, and then you can blow it up in detail. So for example, you will see some examples perhaps here, right? So for example, here we can see the roof here, but and this is why in most CAD programs symbols are used to represent what something is. Now let's say for example these structural members here, right? This falls in the partially modeled category as well, because maybe when the engineer does his calculation, maybe they will use a different type of beam. Maybe the beam will have a different depth and all of that, but you might not know that. So, and you are not necessarily going to be doing the calculations in the architectural role to know that you will use a beam that has a precise depth of X and so forth. So sometimes what we do at the architectural stage, it's a little bit representational, because some things will get modified by the engineer anyway. So you don't need to invest in necessarily modeling out a full beam system. because it's just not your area of focus, but you do still need to represent the beam system here. And this is how BIM is supposed to shine, because the engineer can open your BIM model, and that engineer now who cares about the beam system can now go in and modify the beam that you created with the precise beam that should be used. You guys following me? You understand what I mean? So when you guys are creating your model, especially now for your design studio, you need to determine, you know, what aspects am I going to partially model, what aspects am I going to fully model, and so forth. All right. So this is supposed to be a guide as to how to do that. Okay. Now there are some aspects that we don't need to model any at all, right? And those are usually smaller details. Things like if you need to do a septic tank detail, you're not going to model the septic tank in 3D so you can cut a section of it, right? Things like grease traps. Most electrical and plumbing elements that's represented on the architectural side, you normally do the straight 2D drawings for those. There's no need to model these pipes and these things. Granted, some software can model them, but you definitely don't need to be spending your time doing that, as you guys need to be spending your time working out the spaces and doing other things more related to your field. So for those of you planning to invest in your model for Design Studio, I want you to remember these and don't get lost in trying to detail everything, right? Now, so this is something that we're going to look on when going into the next phase of our drawing, which is the detailing detailing some of these areas. Now, some of these we would have done in the video, so I'm not going to go through that. So for example, like this retaining wall and the panels, but I am going to go into a little bit of talking about things like these doors, which require you to go into the family editor, right? Some of the windows might require you to do that as well. All right, so important concept to remember. Kind of go back here. Families are inserted into the BIM model. Families are separate files that are called RFA files, and those files need to be inserted into the BIM model. Now, I'm going to open up Revit here and show you what we mean by that. And right, so in order to add doors to our drawing, we go to architecture, we go to the door tab. Now once we go to the door tab, some of you will probably only see maybe through 2-3 types of doors that you see here. Now these doors represent actual Revit family files, right? So remember we spoke about this a little earlier. We looked at the fact that family files are RFA files that you insert into your BIM model, right? Now these files, these doors that you will see listed here, whenever you click this door icon here in the properties, these doors that you see here represent RFA files, family files that are located in your template folder. Now Revit by default comes with a bunch of families are railings and doors and all of these things. However, these elements can be edited by opening them in the family editor. Now you can't edit them in the project editor. You have to edit them in the family editor. Now, just a quick refresh again. So remember, Revit has two types of environments. It has the project modeling environment. That's where you draw your walls and your levels and all of these things. Then it has the family modeling environment. Now, you guys have experienced a little bit of the family modeling environment last year when you did 3D modeling. And to be specific, the type of modeling that you did in 3D modeling is edit in place or in place modeling. Do you guys remember that? Alright, so yes, so we did the family modeling environment. However, now we move on to do the conceptual mass editing environment, and that's what we used to start this project. Now this one here is the one that we're gonna look at, right? And well, I'm gonna show you that in two ways. So firstly, when I click on a door, let me just click on one of these doors, because you guys don't have, like, these three doors here are my custom made doors, so you guys don't have those doors. So let me just click on like a regular door that I know that every Revit version has. And then when you hover over a wall, you will see a little shadow of where you want the door to go. Now if you try to put doors in roofs, it's not going to go in there. If you try to put it in railings, it's not going to go. It can only go in walls, because the wall is a hosting object for this family. So remember the concept. You have to insert a family into a drawing, and every family has some families have a host. So for example, some elements can only go in roofs, some can only go on floors, some can only go in walls, and some elements don't have any hosts. You can just plop them anywhere you wish, right? Alright, so I'm just gonna click here, and then this door will be in. I'm gonna press escape now. Now, here is a typical door. It definitely does not look like the door that we want in our drawing. This is what that door looks like. And when we click on the door, you will see that we have different properties that we can edit over here, right? So usually this might be different in different applications, right? I heard one of us is a ArchiCAD fan. So you will notice that you don't really adjust the properties or the dimensions of the door in your properties tab, right? There's nothing to change the width and the height of the door here. Now to do that, you have to change the door type, or the family type. Here we go to edit type, and when you go over to edit type, you will get this window that pops up, and this is where you now edit things like rim projection, trim width, height, and all of these things. So it's kind of a two-step process. Now the thing is, when you change this, it will change for all those family members. So for example, I'm gonna just duplicate this door here, CO to copy, and put this door over here. Hold on, I think I might have missed it. Let's go to copy. There we go. So if I go here and go into edit type, and then for example I change the height of the door, this is in millimeters. This is what I was telling you earlier, guys. So notice this is in millimeters. However, this door family is a metric, it's an imperial door family represented in millimeters, because we changed our project to millimeters. So notice that the height of the door is like the height is like 2032 and like the thickness is like 50.8, you know, and this is because it's trying to represent the millimeter equivalent of imperial measurements. So for example, if you open this door, maybe using a metric family, you'd probably, the door height would probably be 2000 and the thickness would be like 50, it wouldn't be 50.8. But anyway, that's besides the point. This is just why there are these weird measurements here. You know, Revit is converting everything to metric. Alright, so if I want to change the height of this door, I could go 2500. And when I do that, notice the both of these doors changed. So I've now edited a property that is given to me there. Now, if I, for example, don't like an object in the door, let's say that I don't like this rim here, I needed it to be thicker or have a different design, then I would need to go into the family editor to modify this model. Now, I am not able to modify this model by going into edit type. Edit type only allows me to change certain properties that whoever built this door in the family editor allowed me to change. Now, if I, in order to now edit the makeup of this door, the model of this door, when I click on the door, I can go to edit type, that's located under modify. But by default, when you click on the door, the modify type tab will be highlighted and I can go into edit family. Now when I go into edit family now, it will take me into the family editor, right? So again, remember in Revit, you have the project modeling environment and you have the family modeling environment. So when I go to edit the door, it has taken me over to the family modeling environment. Think of it almost as a new application, right? Think as if you needed to do something in Photoshop, but you had to take something into Illustrator to modify it and then put it back into Photoshop. You know, you can kind of think of it that way. It's just that when you go into the family modeling environment, it doesn't open a whole new application. It kind of opens that application within Revit itself. So this is why now your properties is different and your bars up here is all different. It looks a little similar, but it's definitely different. If I go back here to my project environment by switching to this tab, then notice all of these interfaces change again. It's almost like you open two separate programs, right? So let me go back to the family modeling environment, right? So this is the family editing environment. This is what it is. And in this environment, now I can change certain makeup properties of the wall, right? Now, if I, for example, and to change these properties, it's just like when you guys did the edit in place. It's the same kind of, let's say, technology that's used, the same method that's used to change some of these things, right? So if I, for example, wanted to change the thickness of my frame here, you will notice that I'm going to get this message down here which says, hey, you're going to basically break your constraints. And what does that mean? Well, in order to give you the ability to modify parts of this door, the height, the width, the door frame height, in creating this model, we had to create constraints which allows you to change these settings. If you go into the model, mess with it and break these constraints, then when you go back to the Revit file to, for example, change like in this case, the thickness of the molding, it's not going to change anymore. So I wanted to take a little time to just introduce you to the family editor, because you will definitely have to come here to change the door in order to get those custom doors. Now, before we do that, I just want to explain to you a little bit of how the family editor works. And I don't want to necessarily show you with this door element because it might be jumping in too deep of waters. Instead, I want to show you with just an empty family file, right? Okay, now the last time you guys saw the family editor, you had to create custom objects. You had to go to model in place and create all of these objects. You created probably doors and panels and roof elements and rafters and all of these things. You had to create these things from scratch using modeling techniques like Extrude and Revolve and all of these modeling techniques in Revit. Now, the family editor really allows you to do the same thing, but instead of modeling it in your project environment, you kind of model it in this separate application and then you insert it in your project environment. So, okay, let's say that we wanted to build a table. I mean, maybe, you know, chances are you can find a table already modeled for you, but for this example, let's say you wanted to build a table. Table is representing an object that you have to model. Maybe Revit doesn't have a model built in. Maybe you can't find one. Maybe it's something very custom, so you'd want to create it yourself. Well, instead of going to what did we go to last time? Anybody here? So normally we would go to component and go to model in place. Then what happens is, you know, think of it as a two, that example with two applications, right? Where Revit is now opening another application inside of Revit. So, you know, you might choose a category. If it was a table, we could use furniture and choose OK. And it's going to ask us to name it. So we're going to call this model in place table. Now once you do that, notice that same thing again, it changes your interface to now represent a family modeling interface. Well, kinda, because notice that down here doesn't change. Here still has your levels, but definitely your ribbons change. Now this is what you guys did the last time, but the truth is that when you create a family in this method, there are some features that are not directly available to you when you create a model in this way. Now this is a way that you can create a quick model. So if, for example, let's say that there was a particular let's say there was a designer pedestal that we needed to create, right? We could just quickly model it in here. Or let's say there's a custom table that attaches to the wall. We could just come in here and quickly model it. But if you were to create, let's say, like a door or something that would be used throughout your model in different areas, in different situations, you wouldn't want to model it using model in place, right? Now, you may or may not end up using this, but because you're learning the program, we do have to show you. Now, another way that we can create a model, a custom model, is by using now the family modeling environment, which is not quite the same thing as model in place. So in order to do that, we'd have to go to File, and we'll go to New. We put a little R beside New, and notice that we can add a new project, we can get a new family, a new conceptual mass, and so forth. We're going to choose a new family, right? And this is almost like creating a family from scratch. Okay, so we create a new family, and you're going to see this window comes up. And what this window is asking you to do is to select a template. So think of it, if you're starting a new project file, you have to choose a template normally, and we normally choose the architectural template. And in that template, we're able to select like levels, and all that stuff is already set up for us. Now, when we choose a template for the family editor, it's a similar thing. You choose something based on what you are modeling. So I know these text is probably pretty small. Sorry, I can't zoom the screen. When you watch the video in HD after, you'll be able to see it a little better. But basically what these are template files that pretty much has what you need already set up to give you less work. So for example, if I wanted to create furniture, I would choose one. I would maybe choose the here's a furniture system, or I could choose, if you don't know what category it falls under, you can just select generic model, and it will literally, let me just open generic model. All right, so now it has opened the family editor. Now notice it looks a little similar. The ribbon tab at the top certainly looks like the model in place tab, but over here looks a little different. It doesn't really have levels. It has basically reference levels, right, which is a little similar. Now everything is pretty much the same as model in place. So for example, if my table had a let's say I'm drawing the surface of my table here, I would go to Extrude, and I'll just do a simple box here like that. What, 6 foot by 6 foot by 8? Let's make it a little longer, about 9 foot. There we go. And then I could now extrude this. I would have to choose how much I want to extrude it by. So this is pretty much what you guys are familiar with the model in place, right? Now by default, it's going to extrude 1 foot. It's kind of thick, so let's make it 4 inches, which is also kind of thick for a table, but let's say okay. And then we're going to choose okay. And we have our model there. So if I look at my 3D view, remember I'm in the family editing environment, not in the project. This is what the surface of my table looks like, right? This is a basic extrude. Okay, now let's say that, well, this is pretty much on the ground, so ideally we would want this table to be a bit higher. So if I take, for example, a front view or side view, notice that it says reference level 0, and this is where the height of my table is. Now I could, if I wanted my table to be at a different height, I would need to create a new reference, right? And this is where reference planes comes in. I don't think you guys use reference planes before. So remember our little example, what we're doing here, we're creating a table, right? Just for the purpose of understanding the family editor. Now, if we wanted this table to be at a different height, we would have to create a new reference plane. And reference plane, think of them as construction lines. Think of them as when we created the stairs in Revit, and we create these different levels, and we could say, let the stairs start at this level and end at that level. A reference plane is kind of like the same thing. You know, you would say, let the stairs start at this plane. In this case, we would say, let this object be on this plane and so forth. So for example, I could create a reference plane by going to create, and I will choose reference plane here, and I'm going to draw just an average line here, and I can always edit this height later. So let's say that this plane is going to represent the top of my table. I could name it top of table. And remember, what a reference plane is, it's just like construction lines. It, as it says, reference lines. And we're going to make it maybe 4 feet. Alright, good. So now I have this reference line called top of table. So if I select my solid here, notice that it's on the work plane reference level here. So let's go to edit work plane. I'm going to move it to top of table. Actually, that's where it will go. So notice that now I have now moved this object to this reference line. Now, if you notice, while in the family editor, I couldn't just like drag it up and move it. And there's a reason why they did that. Everything needs to be like aligned to these reference planes, and we'll see why. Now I'm just going to draw one leg in the middle of my table, just to save time, because we really don't need to be modeling a table, but we want to understand how the editing the model, editing the family editor works. How do we edit in the family editor? Okay, so we're going to create another single leg here for this table, and to do that we're going to go into, we could do it in side view, but it's probably better to do it in the plan view. I'm going to go back to the plan view here, and I'm not seeing the top of the table because it's like behind me, because I'm looking down on top here. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create another extrusion. I'm just keeping it simple using simple objects. I'm going to draw that here, and this time I'm going to make this even, so I'll make this 1 foot by 1 foot. No, not 1 foot. 1 foot? Yeah, 1 foot is fine. Alright. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to choose OK. It's going to create an extrusion. And I do want to move it to the center of this line just to make everything a bit more simpler. So I'm going to use my move tool here. I'm going to move this down like that, and use my move tool again and move this across like that. There we go. Alright, so let's look at this in 3D, and what we have this element down here, and we want this to come all the way up here. Now, to make this short, we could just click this here and just drag it up, just like how we would do model in place. Okay, let's use the align tool so we get it aligned to the bottom. There we go. Alright. So that's a fairly simple table that we modeled, and it's modeled in the family editor. Now, you know, very similar to the model in place. Now, the reason why you would model in the family editor is because it has this extended features, right? So for example, if I wanted to now place this table in my scene, what I would do now is I would choose this option here to load into project, because remember how it works in Revit. We insert the family objects into our project file. So when we go load into project here, there goes our table that is there. Now the added benefit of modeling this table in the family editor versus just modeling it in place. And I'm going to show you, if I go back into my family editor here, we can actually add some parameters to this table. So for example, let's go to my 3D view. Let's go to top view here. So we could, for example, let's go to our side view. Okay, so for example, let's say we have this reference line here. Now I'm going to turn this into a dimension by clicking this icon here. So this is 4 feet in height. That is there. And what we can actually do is we can change this dimension into a parameter, and we can call this table height. Choose OK. And what that will do for us is that this will allow us to modify the height of this table without coming back and editing the model every time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. It's going to ask me where I want to save it. So I'm going to just save it to my desktop here and call it my table. Alright, now I'm going to load this into my project. And there we go. Alright, so I've created this other version. I've loaded this other version in here. And what you'll notice is that when I click on this table here and I go to edit type, I can actually change the height of this table. Let's go to 1500 here, like that. And it will now change. Now, the thing is that with this table, if I wanted to modify it, I would have to go back into the family editor every time. There are no properties with this table because it's just a 3D object, right? So with the family editor, what we can do is add properties, parameters, that would be a better word, to these to this object here. And let's go back over here. This is essentially what the family editor allows you to do. So all those windows and doors and those objects that you insert into your project, this is really what is going on under the hood. What it's really doing is there's functionality that is added to the model that makes it easy for you to edit certain things. So that takes me back to the door and how we change properties of the door. If we understand how this works, now we can edit the families that we need to place in our project to give our project more detail, right? Now there's one more thing I want to show you before I leave here. Let's go back to our 3D view here. Now, if we look at this table that we have placed here, notice that we are able to adjust the height, but then notice that this height isn't following the height of the table. Let me show you what I mean. So if I go back to edit type for this table and I say, okay, only make this 2 feet tall, and we get something like that. So obviously, like this leg here is not following the table height, so we need to add some kind of parameter that would allow us to do that. So if I go back into my family editor here, There we go. And all I would need to do is that when I'm changing the height, I don't even have to go to edit it. I'm changing the height of this. Drag it to here. I want to just constrain it. I want to lock it to this surface here. So that way, anywhere this surface moves, this will also move here. So I'm gonna save that and load into project again. And yes, I want to overwrite everything. There we go. So now if I change my table height, so let's put that to 600 here. There we go. Then everything will move along with it because this is now locked with this surface. Now this is a very simple example, but being able to do this with your family editor has a mountain of advantages, right? Chances are you won't be needing to create your own objects from scratch, but what you'll be doing is modifying existing objects. So things like doors, windows, to get a door to do and look exactly like what you want, you will need to have to understand how the family editor works. So if I look back at this example here with this door, so let's look at, for example, the elevation of this door here. Now notice you see a lot of reference planes. So for example, there's a reference plane to determine the height of the door. There's a reference plane to determine the thickness of the trim, right? And now you know what these mean. There's a reference plane to determine maybe like the center of the door and all of these things. So in seeing all of this now, you now understand how this door is set up to work, and it makes it easy now to manipulate it because you know what these reference plane means, right? Okay, so now let's go and add in these doors for this building now that we understand how the family editor works. So I'm actually going to close all of these here. I'm going to also close this table that we created. We don't need a table. Okay, so a couple things to notice. Once you insert a family into Revit, even if you delete the RFA family file, if you remember, I saved this family file to my desktop. So if I go to my desktop, you will see my table RFA file there. Even if I delete that file, this table will still remain because it is now loaded into my project, right? And you will notice that it comes under the category of generic models. So now when I go to my project, I will now see this thing called my table loaded in. And even if I delete it from my project, even if I delete it from my model here, like I hit delete here, it is still loaded into my project and I can still get it back anytime. So that's another interesting feature of a family. So for example, these doors that I carried in, they are loaded into my project. But the source of these family files, they're located in your Revit template folder. So for example, if I needed to add a door that is obviously not loaded into my project. So when I go to architecture and I go to doors, these are the doors that are loaded into my project. And they don't really look like the door that I want to create, right? They don't really look like these doors here. Now I could model this door from scratch, just like how I have modeled the table, or I could pick an existing door and edit that model to look like this door. Now, so I'm guessing that you probably want to do the latter, right? Because we don't want to model a door from scratch, most definitely not. However, when we look at the doors that are available to us, I mean, they don't give us much of a starting point, because they pretty much just look like a regular door, and we would still have to go through a lot of trouble to now edit the door model, cut out a frame, add a door, and all these things. So what you want to do is to load in a door that is closer to the door that you want to achieve, and then modify that door. Now, in order to do this, when you go to architecture, you want to go to, instead of going to door, you want to go to insert tab, and then you're going to choose load family. Now remember how this works. We created a family file a while ago and we save it to the desktop. So if we wanted to load that family in Revit, then we just need to go to insert load family and browse to that RFA file and load it. Now Revit has a bunch of family files that is located, it's located on your computer and it's installed by default. So it's usually located deep on the program data, Autodesk, Revit, libraries, and so forth. So if I go to libraries here, you will see that I have a generic library, a imperial, and a metric library. So if I go to my metric library, these are all the categories of things I have, and of course you see doors. And when I click here, I'll get a preview of the doors here. So these are all the doors that Revit has built in. Now definitely this is not where this ends, because you can actually download other categories. So for example, if I go to well, firstly, if you don't have the family files that comes by default in Revit, you can get them. You can just search for Revit family downloads or something, and Revit will carry you. Oh, here we go. Let's try this one. There we go. You can actually download the template file that I just showed you directly from Autodesk, right? It's not hard to find. Now there are two other resources for downloading Revit families that you're going to need, especially for your design studio projects. You don't want to be modeling tables from scratch, modeling doors from scratch. At minimum, you want to find something that looks like what you want, and then in knowing how to manipulate the family editor, you go in and change. So one resource is the official resource of Autodesk is BIM Object. I think it's bimobject.com. There we go. And you do have to sign in, I believe. Yep, you have to sign in. No, you don't. You might not have to sign in. Let me see if you still have to sign in. Now, BIM object, you search for any object you want. So, for example, you want to find a couch. This website looks a little different. Search. And we can search by brands, by categories, by manufacturer, by file type. So let's say that we found a couch. It doesn't really have much. Let's say we pick this one here. And then when you go to download, you can choose whether you want to download a ArchiCAD file or a, where is it? A Revit RFA file. This is the family file here. So I would click this and click download. Yeah, you do have to sign in. Yeah, I figured. So it's a free website, so you just need to create an account. It is an Autodesk account that you have to create. Right, and then I can download. And then notice I have downloaded this family file. So if I go back to Revit here, I can always go to, there are two ways that I can get it in. I can go to insert and browse to where I had that file. So for example, I had it in my downloads, so let's go to downloads. Here it is, that's my couch, and I can double click it to insert the couch. And in this case, it's a Revit 2015. It's going to update it to Revit 2020 for me. Note that you can only go up and not down, so if it was a Revit 2021, it would not work. You must choose family files. Okay, that's no problem. Let's continue. Okay, so the reason I'm getting that error is because that family apparently uses objects from other families that I don't have. But that's just a quick example of how one place that you can go to get families. Now the place that I go normally to get families for my project is Revit City. This website is a community-driven website. So it's not Autodesk. It's basically just the Revit community that comes together and share models. The website is a bit slow because it's, I suspect they don't really have all the top-notch servers to be as fast as other websites. It's still loading. There it is. And I mean, it might not look so impressive when you look at it. However, when you go to downloads here and you go to search, so in this case let me search for couch again, you'll notice that you'll find way more options for couch than even the Autodesk. And look, you have different pages. Now the difference with Autodesk is that Autodesk has Revit models from like actual products. So for example, like an IKEA table that's actually for sale, you could download the family file directly from the IKEA that was sent from the IKEA manufacturer. So you're getting the exact spec. Versus Revit City, it's kind of just like a hodgepodge of models that people decide to upload and share. So let me just grab a couch. So like this couch, if I wanted this couch, I would have to log in. I would have to log in first, just like before, and then I'm able to download. Okay, so those are two resources that you can get family files from. So what you want to do whenever you're doing your project is try to get a model that is close to what you want to achieve, and then you go in and modify it. Alright, so if I wanted to download a couch, I'm just gonna hit now download, and it's gonna download the RFA file. Now remember, I tell you, this website is a little slower, but you just need to wait on it for it to reach. I think it's getting really popular, so the traffic is a bit high. Now if I wanted to insert this couch, you guys know the first way. I can go to insert and go to load, or I can do it another way. I can actually open the the file. So for example, if I go to here, I can click the file and it will actually open up into Revit. So I'm going to choose upgrade the model. So this was a 2014 model. And that's what it looks like. Now if you look at this file, you can see that there has been parameters added to this file, so you can change like the couch width and the couch length and all of these things, and you can actually go in and edit these parameters if you want. You know, if it's not quite looking like the couch that you want. However, if this is fine, then you just choose load into project, just like what you did before, and then you will have your couch here. There we go. And if you click on this couch, you go over to edit type, you realize there are all these properties that you can change. So for example, you can change the couch height, and oh, that didn't change. Let's go here and let's change the couch length. There we go. So maybe the height didn't change because there is a maximum height that the user probably set in their settings, which you can set. Let's go back here. Seat position, this is interesting. So let's change this to 30%. That didn't change. Maybe you can't choose 30. Let's try 90. 90. Okay. Oh, back angle. Oh, actually the seat did move. Back angle, it's now basically 180. Let's try 45. Oh, so that's cool. So look, you can edit all of these things about this model. So that's the kind of functionality that the family file gives you. Apart from being just a regular model, you can also change properties of that model. And you can create it from scratch as we see here, or we can just go in and modify what somebody else has created. Okay, so now we know how to insert family files, and we know good resources that we can get family files from if Revit doesn't have what you need built in. So in our case, we want to insert these doors. So we're going to go to insert and go to load family, and we're going to look around in the Revit library. So I'm going to look in metric library, and I'm going to look under doors, and this door looks pretty similar. Let's see what else we have here. Is we could use this double door exterior glass. Yeah, we could use that and modify that into the door that we want as well. So we have a couple choices. So let's pick this one. Or if you wanted to, you could just try and find a door from Revit City. But you're never going to find the exact door that you need. Alright, so this is pretty much asking me what types of door do you want to import. So I can just hold shift and select all of them. I want to import all of these door sizes. Alright, and now it's loaded. So if I go to doors here, you will see all of those doors have loaded in. So I'm just going to pick one, and that's what it looks like. Alright, so alright, what we're going to do is we're going to change this door so that it looks like what we want here. So the first thing we need to change is the height, right? And then we're going to work on the width. So the height is 3,800, and then it has these handles here. So let's work on that first. Now to change the height of the door, we can pretty much just use the properties, the edit type. Before we do this though, we're going to create a new type. So we're going to duplicate this, and we can call this M plus front door. And we're going to change the height to be 3,800. Alright, so that is half the battle. Now the next thing we need to do is, I believe these doors had a handle on it. So in order to put on those handles, we're gonna need to go into the family editor. Now I could just really model that bar by using a simple extrude, using this as the work plane here. I could just model this bar in by using the extrude command there. Alright, let's look at that in 3D. There we go. Alright, so let's change that width. There we go. And we could duplicate this. Well, before we do that, what would be a good idea is that we lock this end here, so no matter how wide the door gets, the bar will stick there. And then we could lock this end here by choosing the lock button like that. Alright, and I could copy this again, and I'm going to do the same thing, and then lock this right there. Alright, and I'm just gonna load into project and close. I want to load it into, and this is asking you to choose which project you want to load it into. So I want to load it into the project that I'm working in, and yes, I want to save the changes to that. No, actually I'm going to save this as a new file. I'm going to go to save as, and I'm going to save it preferably to my desktop, and I'm going to call it M plus front door. Alright, load into project and close. Yeah. Alright, so now that I've loaded it in, I'll position those doors now, and there we go. Now, so notice that this door is in now, and I mean, I just really created this very basic bar here. I do believe these should be on the other side. Yep, they should be on the other side of the door. Let me change that real quickly. Probably the best way to do this is to do it from a top view. Yeah, I'm gonna overwrite this. There we go. So now they're inside. All right, great. So that is one feature that we had to add by modifying the family to for the door. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is, well, we do need to change the height, and we do need to lay out the doors. So if I go to my level 1, I mean my level 2, right, you'll see the doors here. Now, in order to lay out the doors, what we need to do is we need to have an idea of how much doors they are, so that we can set the width of the door, right? Now, in order to do that, what I will do is, if I look on the elevation, or rather the section, you will see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 doors here. And we do have the dimension for where the doors are. Here we go. So it's pretty much between these two columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There we go. So between here and here, there are 7 of these doors. So how we can divide that space is by, we're going to use some construction lines. So we're going to use a detail line to go over to annotate. The detail line. I'm going to draw a line there. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create 7 divisions, right? So these divisions don't have to be even. We just need to draw them in. So I'm just going to draw them. So I'm going to draw one. So this is 1 door there. And we just need to estimate this at first. This is just how Revit works. 2. So that's 2 doors now. I'm going to copy again. And this time I'm going to choose copy multiple. That's 3 doors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, obviously these lines doesn't divide this line evenly, but that's perfectly fine. All we're going to do now is use our dimension tool, and we need to make sure we pick this line here, and we just need to draw a dimension between each of these lines. So we're going to continue all the way down. That's this one. We get the end there. Once we have that dimension line in, we're going to click this equal icon here, and it's just going to automatically divide the space for us. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, we actually have 8 here. So let me delete that. We need to delete one of these lines. Okay, let's go again. Oh, and this is the thing though, if you miss, you gotta start again, which is quite annoying. So try not to miss drawing these lines. Okay, let's choose back to equal now. There we go. So now we have 7 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Lovely. Alright, so now we just have to fit the doors into these spaces. And to do that, we need to find the width of each space. So all these spaces are equal, so all I need is one dimension here, and I see that it is 2084 millimeters. So I need to know how to edit type, and I know my width needs to be 2084. There we go. I know I just need to move this over like that. Alright, now I need to go back into my model to fix this, but before we do that, let's just copy all of these doors. So these should line up pretty equally because we did measure and divide these things. Alright, there we go. Okay, so now we pretty much have our doors in. We need to fix that element there, but let's change the height next. Now because we're editing the type, when we change one, it will change all of them. And which is 3,800, that's the height. There we go. All right. So we probably just have to correct this handle here. There we go. All right. Now we probably are, I think this is definitely the wall that's causing this issue here. But we can correct that. Okay, so pretty much that is how we get the doors in. Now there is one more door that needs to be custom as well. But I think Revit has a door that does look like it. That's this side door here. I need to figure out why these handles are not going in. They should go in, but if you're having problems, you can always just model a simple handle to go in as well. Alright guys, so that is pretty much it on getting these doors in. So for those of you that are still alive and here and well, this is how we can modify elements from the family, and it's going to play a big part when you start to put furniture in your building. You might find furniture that you don't really like. You know the resources that you can go to get different furniture. Okay guys, so that is it for class today. You guys still here? Mm-hmm. So try to see if you can add in these doors with those modified heights. And these other elements here. You can use the video from last week to add in the railings and the custom retaining wall. Right?